the designated use of the term permanent for these records. And I think there's going to be some pushback or some objection from the records management or the archivist community using permanent records for a designation for all email when we know darn well that much of it won't be permanent. I mean, we may be lucky if 5% of it's permanent, and yet we're going to call it all permanent. And I'm wondering if a better designation might be indefinite or some term that we haven't come up with yet.
But permanent is the term that TSLAC puts in the retention schedules. We're not saying this record is permanent retention. TSLAC has issued its directive.
Well, I think we would prefer not to call all of this stuff permanent. I mean, we're talking about saving memos indefinitely. And if you remember, part of this project was perhaps even deferring a decision on this stuff. That's going to be the net result, because we can't figure out what else to do with it, and we can't let individuals decide how long to keep something. We can't let 4,500 individual users decide how long to keep something, and we can't do it. Nobody's got enough staff years to go in there and email by email and figure this out. So the only other option that we have is to keep it for a very long period of time and default to the idea that the longer retention should prevail over getting rid of it at the appropriate time, if you can't get rid of it at the appropriate time. So we might keep every email in Travis County for 50 years. 50 years from now, somebody may figure out a way to take care of all of this stuff and to apply retentions legitimately, figure out what's permanent, what's not, and clean the hard drives or clean the the chips in your head, whatever it is, and so it's not permanent, and we know it's not permanent. We know that a huge percentage of this stuff is not a permanent designation, like you say, from TSL.
But we also know that TSLAC doesn't issue these regulations because they want us to get creative about deciding how they're being applied. When they say permanent, don't they mean permanent?
Well, yes, but only for records that are permanent, that they say are permanent. And we're about to keep everything permanently or indefinitely that has no such designation.
Right. I thought what we were going towards was don't have individual email users become records analysts and master all 135 series and retention notes and the after audit axiom and all that.
Impossible.
We're not going to do the analysis.
Right.
We're just going to retain everything permanently instead of trying to, no.
I don't think we're going to retain it permanently.
But that's what we're supposed to retain some of it permanently.
That stuff we'll retain permanently.
But then to find out which stuff we're retaining permanently, don't we have to analyze each record?
No, I think your great-grandchildren do.
So we just punt this to the next generation of records managers and assume that whatever problems records management, the industry, our guild of scholars that has this treasure trove of knowledge, our offspring or theirs will...
Yes. They're spiritual and academic offspring.
They'll be enough smarter than we are to have figured this out.
Or there'll be tools. There will be tools developed that can separate the wheat from the chaff.
So educate me about why, and people watching the video too, what is it about the word permanent that you think is going to raise the hackles of archivists?
Okay, here's what I think. I think you records managers, and especially you archivists, may object to the idea that we're going to call something permanent, again, when we know darn well it's not. A memo about going to lunch, there's nothing permanent about it, unless it's a president or some important entity. But my memos about going to lunch have no bearing that I can think of in it that would ever make it permanent. So if it's not permanent, I don't think we can call it permanent. I think we got to call it something else, and we should save the word permanent just for those records that within the historical community or within the records management oversight community, that being in our case the Texas State Library, that they have designated as permanent.